Well, Neil, 27-14 over Buffalo in a game that I'm not sure Penn State had a lot of things that it was going to impress the fan base with. This was a kind of a no-win situation. You beat Buffalo easily, you're supposed to. You struggle against Buffalo, well, then you could create problems. They did struggle for a while, but the second half, they really found some things that worked.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the speed that they're unveiling. One of the stories of the game was Saquon Barkley. True freshman running back, looked really, really impressive. Not only with speed, but the ability to break tackles. And that kind of opened to take more shots down the field for Godwin, Hamilton, just things, everything sort of began to open up.
Isn't it interesting how when you can get a running game going, all of a sudden your quarterback has some time to throw, even without your starting left tackle in there, Andrew Nelson, who was injured. So the second half, they had some positives. Here's the question. I think this is what the fan base is wondering, and James Franklin was even asked this, which I thought was a very good question. Was this an example of you making a lot of improvements today, or was this an example of you wearing down a team because you've got the superior players? What did you think?
Yeah, and he was pretty honest about it. He said it was a combination of both. You know, I think that was it. You saw Buffalo, pretty undisciplined team. I mean, a lot of penalties, chop blocking, and that's just an example. You know, you can't compete up front. You'd have to do whatever you can to try to stay in the game. But to Franklin's credit, going all the way back to last week, he knows they have to establish the running game in order to open up the passing game and keep, you know, give the offensive line, you know, to stop the charge. I mean, the big deal, you go from 10 sacks to none in 1 week.
Well, the good news was the second half they did find some answers, and I'll give them credit for that. They made the switch to Barkley to start the second half, and he was a lightning rod with 12 carries for 115 yards. You'll see him all over Sports Center, leaping over the defender. And I thought the play calling really was pretty good today. That's really been the big issue. But at the same time, it was an awful first half offensively for Penn State, and we saw the same problems that we saw last week. So it's one of the, like I said, it's one of those games where if you crush this team, well, hey, you're supposed to. And if you struggle against this team, it's one, you know, you just kind of figure what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how football is. You know, you don't really want to overreact to a team that you were a 20-point favorite against. Although, you know, when you lose to a Temple in an upset, the world's collapsing. So that's kind of part of it. I mean, Penn State led a lot of plays on the field today. You know, they ended the half where they probably would have gotten at least 3 points when Carter caught the ball and there was an injury to Andrew Nelson, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that cost them a chance at a field goal. Giuseppe dropped what really could have been 2 touchdown passes. You know, going up the sideline, going in was one, and then they down at the goal line was a good play call. So they left at least 10 points out on the board.
One note on the opponent. I want to mention this because I was looking forward to seeing Buffalo, and this is the first-year coach, and he had a lot of success, obviously, so they're undermanned from a talent standpoint. It's one of the most undisciplined football teams I've ever seen. They were out of control with all of the false starts, all of the chop blocking, which can put guys' careers in jeopardy. Some of the Penn State players were really upset about that during the game, and they had to keep their composure, Carl Nassib said. So from this opponent's standpoint, man, I just thought that was the kind of team that was very, very undisciplined. And if I'm that coaching staff, I'm really upset with the way my players came out here and played.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know, you're undermanned. You know, and this is what happens when you're sort of the Washington Generals for a lot of these big name teams. Pitt's going to Akron this weekend. Penn State's never visited a MAC school. So, you know, it gets to a scheduling discussion of, you know, they've always had things kind of their own way, and most of the, you know, they've had 50 MAC teams in here over the years, and they've not paid one game back, and, you know, sometimes, and I'm not justifying how Buffalo played, but probably it gets difficult to be that team all the time that you never get a game back from, and, you know, they didn't handle it well. Going to special teams today, and, you know, when you talked about the first half, Penn State had 2 50-yard returns in the first half. Buffalo's making penalties all over the field, and yet Penn State's only up 10-0. So that's what I'm talking about not getting too carried away with just one game.
Well, the defense was good. Carl Nassib was outstanding, and I think we're going to be able to count on the defense to be good. They've had some injuries, and some guys were out today. but it's the same thing as last year. The defense is going to have to keep this team in games, and you hope the offense can figure some things out over the course of 4 quarters.
Yeah, and they appeared to do. You know, there was a lot of criticism about their lack of adjustments last week, and they made good adjustments today, and they made, as we said, good play calls. So, you know, I think that it sets up for Rutgers coming in here for a primetime game. This was a bad atmosphere with the weather and people still having a hangover from the Temple game. I think next week will give people a chance to see what kind of crowd they'll have in here for Rutgers. Even though I don't think Rutgers is a real good football team, at least it'll be a primetime event.
Man, very impressed by Saquon Barkley. What a fantastic job for a kid in his second college game. So.